So what I want to do, last class we talked about, I asked the question, when are we responsible? And if you remember, the focus of that responsibility was on people that are often identified as the underdogs. Right? In this particular case, people of African ancestry. And then I turn the tables to say, well, but we're all responsible at some level. And I want to stay with that a little bit. And in doing so, I want to look past the headlines. That's the first part of class. And the second half of class, I want to look at immigration and Trump and what he said in the State of the Union address the other day. Okay? I want to give you just kind of a way to understand some things about immigration. We'll come back to it later in the semester. I'm just going to touch it. But so here. First, however, before we do that, I want to go back to the slavery issue. And I just want to take 4 or 5 minutes to say something. And look, for the vast majority of things, but in D.C., with things that were coming out of Washington or things that were coming out of the state capitals or things that were very local. So people weren't doing these investigations about life around the world and studying all these things and looking at all these things. So photography, that photo in the upper left is one of the earliest photos of slaves. And photography really, it wasn't until 1850 that it really got to the place where people could take a camera out somewhere and take a photo of something. And whereas today, you get on your phone there, all sorts of things will come up about slavery all over the world. And if I put slavery in chocolate, pages upon pages upon pages will come up about slavery and chocolate. We have so much access to this information that people, during the vast majority of the time that this country had slavery, didn't have access. And so it makes me wonder then, is there like a way in which we're more, dude? Is there a way in which, I don't know, maybe today we're more responsible? You know what I mean? I don't know, who's responsible? Maybe today we're more responsible because we have access to it. We know, we can understand, we can see it. I don't know, I'm just throwing some ideas out there. Most people, the other side is, just even in terms of slavery, the average slave in the mid-1800s cost about $35,000 in today's dollars. And then once you buy a slave, you got to take care of the slave because this is your investment. It's like, you buy a car, you don't destroy it, you take care of it. So this is a, quote, investment. That's how people thought about it. They thought about people as investments. And so you got to give this slave food. You want to make sure their health is at least okay enough that you can continue to exploit them. You don't just take $35,000 and throw it away. And the vast majority of people didn't own slaves, even in the South. I read a figure one time that only 1% of all slave owners own more than one slave. So it's these were big plantations. They weren't just average people owning slaves. The vast majority of people, even in the South, were really poor. So, even when somebody tells them, yeah, we got this system of slavery, we're bringing Africans over, it's look, A, you're not seeing all the video. You're not seeing this, not like today where we all have reenactments and all sorts of things. It's just sort of going past people. But today, that's not the case. So then I wonder, what's our excuse today for these things? So when I have 3 people up here, and I'm look, what's your excuse for not knowing, right? What's your excuse? Because it's on your phone. I can pull it up on your phone. I can look at it. There, it's right there. I don't know. I'm just thinking out loud. A little bit, think about it in new ways. Not just walk past it and not really care or pretend I don't care or pretend I don't know. You got it, right? Are we cool? And I'm not trying to justify white people, the system of slavery that people created. Definitely not trying to do that. But I don't know, How many of you really know what factory farming's about? How many of you pay attention to factory farming? And like, if you pay attention to factory farming, you know, just the way in which the just gross misdeeds committed against other beings that are creatures and creations of the God that most of us believe in. It's like, and yet we just sort of go on, and then we eat meat, and we do whatever, and we don't think about it, and we support it, and it's like, well, okay, well, why would people in the past be any different? Why somehow do we look at them and we condemn them more than we condemn us? You know what I mean? Because that's part of human nature, man, and that's one of the reasons, but, dude. Are you with me? You're with me, right? As long as you're with me, I'm good. Okay, next slide, dude. So, I want to throw this back onto you in another way, okay? Thinking about responsibility, thinking about looking past the headlines, thinking about really looking past how I think about stuff. And by the way, I'm not saying this isn't about being guilty. I'm not trying to turn you into activists. I'm not trying to turn you into people who believe in the same things I believe in. There's none of that. That's not part of this. What I'm trying to turn you into are people who take responsibility for your own actions. And if you want to condemn somebody else, you got to hold a mirror. Every time I condemn somebody else, or I talk about somebody else, or I'm pissed about somebody else, the first thought that I try to have right after I put that idea out there is like, wait, hang on a minute. When do you do this same thing? When have you done the same thing to somebody else? When have you said the same thing? When have you not done X, Y, or Z, right? I'm trying to always do that so that I can have that kind of sense of, I don't know, just don't want to sit around in this snarky way and be annoying to other people. However, look, 769 million people in the U.S. or in the world live on $1.90 or less, okay? And you know, that's not, okay, some of that is, right, the cost of living in certain countries is less and so on and so forth, but $1.90, y'all, right? You can, if you come with me on some of my journeys and trips and travels around the world, you will see that $1.90 doesn't go very far anywhere. However, 3.2 million of them were living in the U.S. when the World Bank did this study. 3.2 million. It's like, damn, that's 1% of the U.S. population. 3.2 million, right? That's a lot of people. So, and yet, dude, the bottom 10% of people, the poorest 10% of people living in the United States are identified as better off by the World Bank than 2/3 of the world's population. So here's another thing. Like, while we will oftentimes talk about, we judge ourselves or we compare ourselves to the people around us. I'm just throwing stuff out to you all, right, by the way. I just want to get your brains going in some different ways. We will compare ourselves to the people around us. We will naturally, because it's like, hey, how rich am I? I'm not looking in Sierra Leone. I'm not looking to Madagascar. I'm not looking to Cambodia or Bangladesh or India or wherever. I'm looking to the people around me. So I'm looking at my roommate. I'm looking at the person sitting next to me. I'm looking at the fact that I have an iPhone 4 and the person next to me just got an iPhone 10. It's these sorts of things, right? It's like, I'm like, well, I'm not really rich, because then you're thinking of, I don't know, Bill Gates or whatever the case is. But the fact is, and that's just how people all over the world do it, because that's how it is, right? We understand we can only compare ourselves to people who are around us. But if we compare ourselves to the globe, and if we look down at the entire planet, because we are citizens of the planet, and we are, if you believe in God, then we're all children of God, right? In that way, whatever that means, I don't know. The poorest 10% in the U.S. are better off than 2/3 of the world's population. That means, really, if you're sitting in here, So I don't know what your student loan debt, and I know there are some people in here, obviously, that are way wealthier. His families are way wealthier than other people in here, right? But by and large, if you're sitting in here, the vast majority of us in this room, are in the elite of the world's population. So if anyone ever asks you, are you rich? And you're at least middle-class American or above, your answer should be, yeah, I am rich. And you may not feel rich, but that's just because you don't travel. It's like you're not going around, you're not checking out the world. And the whole world isn't shithole-like, right? There are countries, obviously, that are poorer than other countries, but it's like, no, if you're middle class on above in the U.S., and you're at a place like Penn State, and you're going to get a degree from a place like Penn State, your response to that question should be, yeah, I'm rich. And when you start doing that, it really starts to change the way we think about ourselves and our place in the world. It's kind of like if every time we use pronouns for God, we use she and her instead of he and him. Really, honestly, for those who have started to do that, it's really a game changer. It really is a game changer. So it's like, yeah, I'm rich. And by the way, those of you who believe in God, I'm just going to drop a turd in the punch bowl if I could. And then we're going to move on somewhere to another conversation. Those of you who actually do believe in God. And you think that you're going to die and you're going to get judged. Right? She's going to judge you. Because that's how she does, and that's what your belief system has told you. That's what she's going to do. She's going to judge you, and she's going to say, did you do more good than bad? And what's all the bad stuff you did, and so on and so forth. God's not going to say, yeah, you didn't really reach out and help kind of people. The word, my word that was very clearly translated through the prophets, whatever the religious path were really, you got to reach out and you got to help poor people, and you didn't really do that. And you're going to say, yeah, but I help people around me. Like, yeah, but people around you were rich, like you. So what were you doing with really the lesser than? You can say, well, but I wasn't really rich. And God, because God has created everything, right? The whole planet, God's going to take you back and she's going to show you the entire planet and be like, no, everybody is your brother and sister, not just the person in your neighborhood. And it's funny, it's quite interesting that sometimes our perspective taking on things like this will allow us to either move forward in some way or move backward in some way. And by the way, that's not a judgment on my part, because I'm a heathen, so whatever, it doesn't really matter. But I hear it enough, you know what I mean? Dude, all I care about is the fact that Kenneth Copeland was able to get his followers to give him $36 million for a brand new jet so he could travel around the world and minister to people. That's my guy. Great. I'm trying that, by the way. If I could get someone to buy my message, I'd be killing it. All right, man, so here we go. Next one. One of the things, now we're going in a different direction here. So one of the things I want to talk about is, and we're going to talk about this throughout the class, but it's like I've been talking about this sort of race versus class. Race and ancestry versus social class. So it's like, we talk about race, and race is the hot button topic. And, we're always, not always, but often engaged in these race conversations. And, it's easier or much more acceptable to talk about poor people, to condemn poor people, to say mean things about poor people, to do like shithole nations, right? Like, that's not what I want to do and what I've been doing in Native American, and a woman, let's say black and Native American, and rich, wealthy, really well off, educated, your family's educated, you're all good. Or would you rather be poor and white, living in a trailer park somewhere outside of State College, whose family didn't go to college, you're trying to go to college, maybe you're going to go to community college, but How many would rather be poor and white because the poor and white person has more advantages for sure because they have white skin? Nobody, right? Yeah, nobody, exactly. So why is it that every time we're talking about race in the way that we talk about it in society? Yesterday I was listening to this guy, Ben Shapiro, this kind of really conservative guy. He was on campus a couple years ago, and people were just like talking about, and it's interesting to listen to him, right? But people were just talking about like black people and brown people as though they're complaining all the time, right? As though they would definitely rather be white instead of being wealthy, as though there's this sort of one statement out there. And what I think, and I said it last class, and I want to say it again, and this is especially to white people, but it's also to black and brown people, to be careful about what you say and how you say it. But I want to say it that there is by the way, and I'm going to bring somebody up in a few minutes, because I know you're done listening to me talk, so it's all good, right? I said it the other day. Man, what did I say? Oh, that there's almost like this dialogue that white people, we kind of have in our heads that allow us not to take race seriously because we have the sense, or we create a story that black and brown people, minorities, right? Or for men, it's women, whatever the case is, that they're mostly complaining. And they're always bringing this stuff up. And they have a very different viewpoint on all this stuff. And they're putting the blame on us. And women are putting the blame on us. And that, as long as we keep that way of seeing the world, it keeps us from having real, honest, and open conversations, right? Because that's not what I see. I hear all these pundits, and I especially hear this when well, first off, liberals miss the whole point, and conservatives miss the whole point. It's like these pundits that really are talking as though they know what's going on, but they never actually have conversations with people. So what I want to do is take a look at this. So, for example, I did this when I did the Black Devils class, right? I showed you data like this, but these are the real data, right? So, I mean, here it is. 89 to decisions have really increased a lot. And there are reasons for that, by the way, because there's a number of Asians who are coming over to the United States who have education and increasingly have education, and their wealth is starting to kick in, right? And look at Hispanics and blacks and Native Americans are down here, okay? So you look at that. It's like, okay, that's what we're talking about. We're not equal, right? Remember when we did the race switching thing and I showed you going into the next 30 years, 25 or 30 years, and I showed you how much wealth white people will have and then how much wealth black and Hispanics will have? Like it's going to grow to like sort of here and here, but white people is going to be up here? And so like, that's worth talking about. Why is that going on? And so white people are saying like, yeah, man, you know, like, well, race is over. We had a president who was half black and like, who knows what, I have no idea. And black and brown people are saying, no, we need to keep talking about this. Like, that's not the case, right? So go to the next slide, bro. Or this one, right? Out of school suspensions. Look at this. Like, there are lots of reasons for this, but look, I'm just giving you these numbers, right? We can break it down further. Like, well, why do black students have way more suspensions? Look at black males, right? Like 3 times the suspension rate than white males. When you get called in and you do something wrong, 20% of the time black males get suspended, 7% of the time white males get suspended. Why is that? It's like, so people want to talk about that. They want to have a conversation. Right? And when they have the conversation, white people have this sense, it's like we turn it around as though we're being blamed for it, and all black and brown people are doing is saying, look, man, we just want to have the conversation. And so we want to keep putting it out there. And then white people say, why are you continuing to put it out there? So go to the next one. Or this one. 2.5 times more likely to be killed by police as white Americans. Okay, so there's a lot in that. Whether they're unarmed, whether they're armed, it doesn't matter. We can compare that. Look at that. It's like we want to talk about it. So here's what I need. All right, next one, man. I need 3 volunteers, and I need...
Yo, before you do that, everybody on Twitter who's doing their homework right now, please stop. This is your time to take like the class in, not to do your homework assignment.
Yeah, don't do your homework in here, dogs. Come on.
Thank you.
Jeez. All right, you ready? Here we go. I need 3 volunteers. I need 3 black and brown people. I need 3 people. All right, man, 1 at the top. And I need someone who's, bro, wait, hang on. You got to be from the U.S., though. Are you from the U.S., bro? All right. Dude, are you from the U.S.? What? Nah, I need someone. Nah, I need someone from the U.S. Are there any Latinos, by the way? Any Hispanics? Who else? Give me somebody else. Dude. Fernando, man. Who's Hispanic or Latino? Dude, here, you can sit right there. Bro, sit right on the table. Yeah, I was just waking you up, bro. But, yo, and I need 1 other person, someone who's Hispanic or Latino or some Mexican, man. Any Mexicans here? Dog, you're Mexican, right? Wait, you're Mexican, right? Dude, how about you? You're the token Are there any other Mexicans in class? Dude, all right. How Mexican are you, man?
100%.
Do you eat tacos al pastor?
Yeah.
Muy bien. Are they your favorite? Have you had tacos al pastor, bro?
Yeah, I actually had them earlier.
Seriously?
Earlier in the week.
Seriously, earlier in the week? All right, man. What's your name? Bro, our sister, we'll start right here.
Jasona.
What is it?
Jasona.
Jasona? Where are you from?
Pittsburgh.
Pittsburgh?
Rosiba.
Dudes, come on. Yeah, cheer, because they're not in the Super Bowl, are they? No? So you got to kind of...
One of us is.
You got to, like, give them a shout-out, you know what I mean? So that she can feel better about herself, you know, the whole 9 years.
Rosiba.
What is it again?
Rosiba.
And you're authentically Mexicana.
Yeah.
Muy bien.
My name is Ian, and
Wait, what is it?
all right, cool. So let's try this again. All right, yeah. So can everybody hear me? All right, cool. So my name's Ian. I'm from New York, and I'm Jamaican and British.
Yeah, Jamaican and British? All right, man. All right, listen, ma'am. Can you tell me, I want to have a conversation with the 3 of you. Minorities always complaining. And when you're not around white people, okay? It was just when you're around but let's say you're not around white people, okay? How much are you, because there's this sentiment about you doing that, just like stop thinking about race and move forward, et cetera, et cetera. How much are black people and Hispanic people, and we don't have any Asians up here, but how much are you complaining? How much do you hear when white people aren't around to overhear it? Anybody, man?
Complain about what exactly?
Just racism, man. How much are you blaming it on the man? How much time do you all spend sitting around going, yeah, well, I'd be better off, or I'd be further ahead if there wasn't for racism and white racists?
So I think there's some truth.
Hold the mics really close.
So I think there's some truth to the statement. However, I don't think. I think there's two categories of, black people in general. And in at least in relation to this topic, the first is, like you said, black people who, as anybody, if you're black in the room, you're disadvantaged in this country because, the country is run by majority, white, heterosexual, Christian males. That's a prime majority. So if you're not all of those things, in some way you're disadvantaged. But
what do you mean by disadvantage, bro? Because let me just tell you what white people hear. Let me just say this: what white people hear is when you say disadvantage, they mean like they hear if you're not white and Christian and so on, you have no power, you have no ability to get ahead, you have no ability.
No, that doesn't mean. So well put. So it does mean you're disadvantaged to a point, but it doesn't mean in that instance, you're just not part of the majority. So you are a minoritized group. whether you're a white woman, whether you're a minority woman, whether you're a minority male. But I think that, as educated, I can speak for myself as an educated black man, it's not so much complaining as it is, just realizing, how the institution is set up against you, Prime example, like the educate. You showed those stats for education. That's a direct correlation with the education to prison pipeline system. That's direct institutional racism. Like when Trump got into office, stocks went up in private prisons. That's direct institutional racism.
So how much time do you spend? And then we're going to go to the two of you. How much time do you spend sitting around with other black people?
I acknowledge it. I don't complain about it because it's like complaining is just like a form of complacency. I don't do that.
So you're just pointing it out.
Yeah,
like somebody would point out the fact that the Steelers suck because they're not in the Super Bowl. And you're like, well, okay, maybe not. They don't suck. But that's what I mean, right? You're like not sitting around like, because white people have the idea that all y'all do is like, they see like these groups of, not all white people, right? But it's so like, white people just never get on the inside, right? They rarely, hang on, I'm going to say this in the correct way. There are large numbers of white people that never have the opportunity to sit around a room full of black and brown people and hear the fact that you're not all just sitting around talking and complaining about all this stuff all the time. That you're like going like, yeah, man, okay, we got to get going. We got to help do what we need to do for ourselves. We got to.
But even that within itself is, that's not being able to experience that as a white person is a degree of privilege within itself.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, but it keeps the walls up, right? It means that we don't see you. How about one of you?
I feel like I don't really complain about it.
You don't complain about it as a Mexican woman?
Yeah.
What do you mean? Can you say more? Talk. Hold the mic really close.
I'm trying to think. I don't know.
Hang on, we'll come back to you.
Okay.
Okay, yo.
I usually tend not to complain. Something I really notice a lot is like once you're an upperclassman, you start getting into these smaller classes and you notice, like with my major is accounting, I'm usually in a class with mostly white people. Like there's only there's only one other black person, and it's kind of like you're kind of being judged just a little bit because it's like I've been sitting.
You feel like you're being judged.
Yeah, because I've been sitting in the same spot in class in the back, like it's like week 4, and then someone took my seat one day and I sat in the front, and I started like being a little bit more participating, and then the teacher was like, "Who are you?" And I'm like, "I've been here for 4 weeks. Like you haven't noticed me yet." So
Yo, it's like, interesting, right? I stand out. Like, come on, there's only one of two black people in there. I stand out. You know what I mean? How do you not see me? Yeah. Okay. So you feel there's a sense that you have that maybe like that you can feel judged, or you feel
like maybe
you're
I'm
aware
not
of it.
interested in enough in accounting, or like trying to be on the same level as like white people.
So do you complain? Do you go home and complain about it? Like how much it sucks?
I put it on Snapchat.
Yeah. I mean, it's like, what'd you put on Snapchat?
I just was like,
Oh, you mean the thing with
Yeah.
the professor?
Yeah.
No, but on a day-to-day basis, right? When you're walking around campus and you're going into your classes, I want to know, like, how much are y'all sitting around complaining about this?
I don't think black people more complain about it.
People. Like, no, it's not how this goes down. It's not. It'll be the small interactions in your day-to-day basis, like whatever it may be, whether it's like, man, those are maybe 15 white kids. They're all very drunk, very inebriated. If there are 15 black kids walking down State College being very drunk, sloppy, and inebriated, I promise you, Campus PD will find out about it quickly.
Okay.
State College PD will be there quickly.
Okay, so you have that idea, right?
Yeah.
And, dude, hang on. I need, so 15, dude, wait, like, nothing against frat dudes, right? But I'm walking home, and, like, frat dudes are out partying like crazy and having tricycle races, you know what I mean, across the lawn. And like they're drinking and tricycle races, and I'm just thinking, what would your grandmother say if she had a photo of you having a tricycle race, drinking beer and hooting and hollering with your shirt off and being crazy? Like, what would your grandmother say, bro?
My grandmother's straight from Jamaica, so like you don't want to know what she would say.
All right, got it. And then in white people, I don't know, it's not all white people, but how many, listen, man, so what he's saying is he thinks that and listen to this, right? This is really important. You're not complaining, right? You're not complaining. You said like a group of black people, group of black guys walking down the street. It's like you're not saying this sucks, the world sucks, everybody sucks. You're saying here's an observation. If there were 15 white dudes, first off, man, you're also in a college town, so white people also get hammered by the police, and a lot of black people don't. You just don't see it. Like, you don't see all the ways in which frat houses are getting busted, apartments are getting busted, like all sorts of things are happening. Mostly because a lot of times you're not partying together, so like you're not seeing it. Like, because I could bring white dudes up here and talk about, all right, what are all the times that you got hassled by the police and screwed over and all that kind of stuff, right? But nonetheless, right, you have this idea that, yeah, but still, like really loud, obnoxious black dudes, more people are going to notice. Now, here's what I want. More people are going to notice. That's your observation, right? You didn't say, we're going to go to jail.
No, nothing like that.
Okay, so here it is. That's the kind of thing that black people will say. Okay, got it? White people. Who disagrees with that? That 15 black dudes walking down this side of College Avenue, 15 white dudes walking on this side of College Avenue, they're both being equally obnoxious, right? Which ones are probably first going to have the police called on them? The white dudes or the black dudes? How many say, definitely the white dudes? So nobody says that. Okay, how many say, it could be even, could be the same? I don't know. I think it could be the same. Depends on where it is, but I hear you, right? But, okay, so that's an observation, right? That's like not complaining. That's not, minorities aren't always complaining. He's not complaining. He's just making the observation.
If there are 15 black people walking down State College on a sidewalk being rowdy, that we're all going to go to jail. It's about the concept that there's just more attention being drawn towards us.
Okay, you're not going to get arrested. You're not going to get taken down. Exactly, right? Unless they know you're from Jamaica, dude. Then they're going to be like, had the dogs out, sniffing around. You know what I mean? I'm just saying. And the white dudes are going to see you, and they're going to come over to your side of the street and be like, dudes, hook me up, right? How about you? What's it like in the Mexican community? Because we have this idea, I see these rallies, the Mexicans are all rallying against Trump, and like, y'all hating Trump, and y'all hating this, and y'all hating that, and it's like, you're all like, because the media's showing it all the time, like, what's it like for you?
Oh, I don't know.
You don't know?
Yeah.
Dude, here's an authentic Mexican, and she doesn't even know. You know what I mean? You're probably the typical Mexican. You're just living your life. You're not really thinking about stuff. Anybody else want to chime in? Any other Latinos want to chime in here? Anybody else in class who wants to jump up here really fast? Dude, yeah, come here a sec. Dude, I love that, by the way. By the way, do you want to add anything to that?
No, I mean, I agree with what he's saying.
Yeah? Yo, have a seat. Yeah. And where are you from?
Like Lehigh Valley, PA.
Yeah? Where's your family from?
Peru.
Peru?
Yeah.
Okay. So how is it in the South American, the Hispanic community that you see? Like complaining. It's like this idea. Minorities are complaining all the time.
So I would say that we definitely talk about it, but it's not a thing that's like, oh, white people, like, it's more of like, oh, this kind of sucks that we have to go through this, or like more of like, or at least from how I've talked about it with some friends, it's more, I guess, we think of it more as like an institutional thing, versus like, oh, like a certain person or like a certain, Mm-hmm. So more, I guess, more thinking of the past and what that has done to us now versus like,
Okay, so listen, man. Let me ask you this. I'm going to ask the three of you. Okay, you ready? I'm going to ask the four of you. There's four. When you screw up, who do you blame it on? Like, you don't show up at the quiz on time in Social 19. You don't do your homework on Sunday night because you're out playing around and whatever. You forget to do it. Who do you blame it on? Who's like the first person you blame it on?
myself.
Who do you blame it on?
Myself.
Who do you blame it on?
Myself.
Bro,
Myself, obviously.
And when you're driving down the road and you're speeding, right? And the cops pull you over, because you hit a speed trap, and the cops pull you over, and you definitely were speeding, my God, right? Who do you blame it on?
In that very moment or afterward?
What's that?
In that very moment or afterward?
Well, what if you see a bunch of white people pulled over also? They're not just picking out black people.
Well, then obviously it's my fault. I have to have better eyes if I'm speeding on the road.
Yeah. How about you, Don? Same thing?
I would say the same thing.
How about you?
The police?
Yeah. You're speeding. Yo, you're speeding. Listen, I'm asking this question, right? So here's the thing. So I read this survey. It was actually a pretty good survey. I looked at where they got it from, and I want to get your response to it, okay? And it was well done. And by and large, you should know that the data, when I use data in here, I try to be really careful. I'm not just pulling stuff out of nowhere. I'm going for good stuff. I'm trying to find stuff that it makes sense to me. And the reason is because we're live streaming, y'all, right? I can't tell you how often we get trolled by people who complain and about the fact that, we miss data. I'm an idiot because that's not true. And then if they point out, in fact, it's not true, and I'm like, oh, I am an idiot. And then I got to go back and apologize, and I got to come back and say, I am an idiot, and I shouldn't have said that, and so on. So I'm really careful about it, right? And sometimes I mess up. So here was this research. And they wanted to see which people in the United States, when they screw up, and it's their fault, right? You don't wake up for a quiz, all these things, right? Which people are most likely to blame it on themselves as opposed to somebody else? Like in the case of you all, you graduate from Penn State and you don't get the job that you really want. Which group of people are most likely to blame their failures on themselves and not on the system and not on the man and so on and so forth, okay? So who do you think it is? Who's most likely to just put the blame on the system and the man and so on and so forth?
White people.
White people?
And I'll tell you why.
Uh-huh. Wait, hang on. Before you do, go ahead. What do you say?
No, he can go.
No. What do you say, though? Because you're going to say black men, right? Don't say black men. Are you kidding? Don't throw the guy under the bus, man. All these black men in here, you're going to throw. It's just like, shit. Black men, all of them. That's what percentage. No, seriously. Who's most likely?
I feel like mainly black people.
Yeah?
Because we're just used to not used to failure, but we can't.
I would think black.
And what about Latino, like Latino men and Latino
Latino
women?
men too.
So
yeah.
you think minorities?
Yeah.
I agree with
You think
minorities.
Yeah? Dude, and you say white people. Why do you say white people?
Because, so going off of, I'm sorry, I don't know your names, but based on what the two ladies said at the end, it's like black people and minorities as a whole are so used to the concept that there are certain things that we can't have in life because of the color of our skin. And there's certain stereotypes that we're supposed to fall into, or certain things or jobs we're not supposed to have. Like, I could tell you as a person, who, my field, I'm a political science major, I want to work on Capitol Hill, and I've also already worked on Capitol Hill. That's a purely white field. It's I feel like it's like I said earlier, there's a split. There are minorities who understand that racism is prevalent in the country, and that they are one or two steps behind because, they're a black man or a black woman.
Okay.
And the flip side to that is I feel that, I said white people, I feel that way because I feel that, if you don't face a certain type of adversity growing up traditionally, or you're used to, like you said, living a very sheltered life, if you're wealthy, maybe you get everything you want, maybe you traditionally have always kind of had that winning mentality, you've never really lost, you expect it, exactly.
Okay, so let me ask you this question, bro. If you screw up and you flunk this class, and you complain to your grandmother, what's she gonna say?
You have 2 strikes against you because you're a black male. She's told me every day of my life.
I know, I got you. So whose fault is it?
It's my fault.
Whose fault is it?
My fault.
Whose fault? To your grandparents. Your grandparents. Your grandparents. My fault? Listen, man, the group that's most likely to blame themselves for the failures, and you might have like a thought system here, right? Like you might be thinking about a lot of things. Like in your head, like I can think about all the politics of it, right? As a poli-sci major, you can think of it. But in the end, the data come down to the fact that in the end, the one group in the final instance that will be like, yeah, it's my fault, black men. Second, Muslim men. Who's at the bottom? Who's at the bottom? Who's most likely to find some excuse for it to bounce it off of somebody else? White people, right? And because it's like this idea that like, I have no idea, right? But what goes on is I think it's black people, right? But it's not, right? Like you have the same concept as lots of other people have. The data are showing that that may be true for you or somebody, right? But when we carefully look at people, we put them in a room, and we do it by the hundreds and the thousands, and we have conversations with them, and we see in the end, what are they thinking? What they're thinking is, if I screw up, it's my fault. And that, like historically, for example, there's no community in the United States where that message is stronger than in the black community and in the Latino community. There's no community that's stronger. Like you have strikes against you, you have strikes against you, you have strikes against you, right? You're women, you have dark skin, you're Mexican, you're Peruvian, whatever, right? It's like you need to take responsibility for those strikes against you, and in the end, you need to take responsibility for all the bad decisions you make. And if you don't do that, you will just spiral downward and be an idiot. And that is the historical traditional philosophy in black and brown communities, right? And so isn't it interesting that when we do actually the research, that we say like, wow, it's like black men are, this is this one study that I looked at. So like, it's like, wow, that's fascinating. How is it that it's opposite of that we have the opposite? They all just sit around and complain? Because it helps us. If I can just imagine that everything I get is I deserve, and everything you don't get, it's because of you, but you have to listen to your complaints. None of you. I don't have to listen to your complaints. Dude, like whatever, complain about the police all the time. It doesn't matter to me. I can just brush it away. Because I believe that you refuse to take responsibility for yourself. But what would be different if we actually saw what I'm saying right here? To list them, we should write a book about it because they're really funny. The kinds of ways that people will do gymnastics to not take responsibility for themselves. And white people and black and brown people equally, but the data are showing it's actually a little bit more white people. So what if that's the case? Do any of you want to respond to that? How would things change if we actually had to see that? Like the white community had to see you all as not complaining all the time. You're actually just pointing out some inconsistencies and inequalities and like these kinds of things. How would things be different? Dudes, can we do this? Can you just pair up really fast? How would things be different? Like, how would you see the world different if you really saw this? Just pair up and just have a quick conversation. It's fascinating, right?
So, question.
Yeah, you don't really know.
So, since we're doing backflips to make up missed assignments, I didn't miss an assignment, but I wasn't here the second week of. I'm a senior. I'm taking care of like silly week things, like obviously job things. I already talked to Lauren about it. She already by default, like she's a fortress, so she's not gonna like give me a buy or a pass.
You're graduating?
Yeah, graduating this spring.
What's your GPA?
Which one GPA? I'm like a 3.2 now.
You're
I've been taking a dip.
That's nice. That's good. Cool. What year are you?
Fresh.
Yeah. So pleasant.
Dude, it's so
simple.
Yeah.
Honestly, your first year of college is better.
All right, y'all. Listen, I don't want to go I think this is a fascinating conversation, and it's worth continuing, and it's worth continuing in your discussion groups. And we don't have to go any further with it, because I want to talk about Donald Trump. Because why do you not want to talk about Donald Trump? You know what I mean? Like this guy. I love this guy. So let's do, but think about it. You know, take it back to your discussion groups. Any final words? Anyone want to throw a final thought out? Dudes.
So I'm sure everybody here has seen the Twitter Jay-Z beef, the Donald Trump Jay-Z Twitter beef. So, you know, just to go off what Sam said, it's just about having a conversation. Like, you know, Jay-Z said that the most important thing we could get from Donald Trump is the fact that everybody wants to talk about racism now. Everybody, it's a hot topic. It's always been a hot topic. So I think that that's probably the most important thing, just to encourage the discussion, the dialogue.
Totally, man. Trump said something really cool the other day. And most liberals, those of you who hate Trump because you're a bunch of liberals, you probably didn't even hear it, didn't even see it. And it was a really cool, very thoughtful thing. And I was like, man, that's that other side of him that's really cool. He was talking about how when he tweeted out the videos of the right-wing anti-Muslim hate groups in the UK, and he said, we need to follow these, we need to listen to these people. This was, like 6 months ago or so. And he was confronted by Theresa May and other folks in the UK and said, why, you shouldn't have done that. Like, why'd you do that? And he said, I wasn't thinking, and I tweeted it out, and it was really wrong of me, and I'm sorry, I apologize, and I shouldn't have done that, because it's not good to do for Muslims, it's not good for the UK, and it's not good. And I'm like, that wasn't like the lead headline, you know what I mean? And I thought, okay, it's like, he is capable of thoughtful ideas. All right, dude. Thanks, man. Dog. Thanks. Thanks, man. Thanks, dog. Is that your water? I'm always looking for cool things that Trump says. I do look, it can be, I work at it sometimes, but sometimes I work at it too much, actually. All right, listen, man. Speaking of that, we're going to talk about immigration. We have 20 minutes left, and I want to walk you through something. And the idea here is reading behind the headlines, okay? And what I want you to think about is, when you think about something like immigration into the United States, and what it's all about and what our policies should be, it's really important to understand that we've been battling over immigration policies from day one, from the very first time that Europeans came here. When people show up in the United, this is just standard around the world, man. Most of the wars today are wars that are being battled. Hey, by the way, everyone take a deep breath, because actually, I don't say many things that I think are really kind of thoughtful, but this is actually really thoughtful. And I'm doing this for the video because I'm getting hammered by some people who think I'm a hardcore leftist, and I actually want to say something thoughtful, okay? So historically speaking, what we see in most of the world is when people show up in another place and they sort of they're able to get to where they need to go, and they walk through the door of another country, or let's say they come this way, right? And they've arrived at this country, right? In this case, the United States. What we see is very often the first thing they do is lobby to close the door who are not like them. It's like a human nature thing, like this human nature thing. So, and immigration is complex here because of Native Americans, but we'll talk about that later. The next slide. So, one of the things that is think that most people think their country's a shithole, because most of them don't. Most of us like our countries, we like our cultures, so 7.45 billion people in the world, okay? 327 million people in the United States. Okay, got it? How many of the now 7.12 or whatever it is, billion people, because it's 7.45 minus 327, so all the people in the rest of the world, how many of those people want to move to the United States? How many people want to move to the United States? How many of those people? If they could, they would permanently move to the US. How many people? What do you think? Just talk amongst yourself really fast. What do you think? Give an answer. So you got it. There's about 7.1 billion people. How many people would permanently move to the US if they could?
It's a great shot, thank you.
Okay, you ready? You got your numbers? Okay? How many would leave? Think about all the people living on $1.90 or less a day. They're going to go somewhere else if they can. Okay, you got it? All right, here we go. Next slide. So that's the answer. It's about. Give or take 5 or 10 people. Okay, that was a Gallup poll they did. They sampled, I think, 152 countries in the world. Gallup is reputable. They're very careful. Their methodology was very good. They spent a lot of money to try to figure out how many people would pick up and leave their country and go somewhere else if they could. And they estimated it would be about 630 million people. Which kind of makes sense. It's not that, it's not that many, right? It's about 10, almost, it's 8 or 9%, 8.5%, I don't know, right? Because it's a lot. Okay, how many of those people chose the United States as the country where they would move if they could? Talk to your neighbor. Of the 630 million people, how many of those people chose the United States as the country if they gave them residency, said, here you go, you can come here, come to the U.S., how many of them would choose that to come to the U.S.?
Hey, Sam, do you know the best part about seeing computers open?
Dude, yeah, can you guys close your computers?
Every time you guys have your computers open, you guys are not helping the live stream at all.
Yeah, it's a
So,
problem, actually.
Thank you for closing them.
Yeah, it's
keeping
not
them
just
closed.
that, it's just annoying. Because you're not. Unless you're looking up these numbers. Just sit down over here. There's empty seats. All right, ready? 630 million. How many people? Did you come up with numbers? What'd you say, bro? How much? 50,000? What'd you say? Huh?
Oh God, I don't know.
Dude. Dude, the answer, go to the next slide. It's 138 million. Okay? Which is a lot of people. But listen, here's what that means. You ready, y'all? Right? Here's what it means. Ready? If I had $1 for every time I heard someone say, we have to close the borders because everybody in the world wants to come here, everyone wants to come to the United States, we're the greatest country, and of course everybody does, you got all these nations in Africa and all the poor nations, and people all want to come here, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera, I'd be really rich. So Gallup is saying, well, actually, most people would choose another country. Number one country, of the 630 million, the US is number one. Behind the US is the UK, is Canada, is France, it's Australia, Saudi Arabia, okay? But we're number one at 138. However, what this means is that, and it's not theoretical because you could never play this out, but imagine, because I'm just playing a mind game here. What if we open the borders up and said, all right, listen, man, anyone who wants to come here, just come here, and whatever, we're tired of really dealing with this stuff. Well, obviously, that's not the number it would be, but what Gallup is saying, nor is it the number that many Americans think it is when they say things like, everybody wants to come to the United States, everybody wants to be here, everybody this, everybody that. And if I listened to Trump's State of the Union address, I would listen to that and imagine that, yeah, we got to do something because everybody wants to come here. When in fact, what Gallup is saying is like, that's not necessarily the case. Right? And it's really something to think about. Okay? So what I want to do is walk you through a couple things here. Go to the next slide, Doug. So this is something from the State of the Union. So under the current broken system, a single immigrant, and now I'm going to walk you through this, because remember, read behind the headlines. Presidents, you basically can know a politician is lying or saying something that's not really true when their lips are moving. So whether they're Democrats or Republicans or Obama or what's her name? What's her name? Hillary, yeah, all right. George Clinton's wife from Parliament. Dude, she'd have been better off if she was with George Clinton. All right, so anyway, well, it doesn't really matter, but the idea, do you know who George Clinton is, bro? Do you know? Dude, can someone just tweet out some funkadelic stuff? All right. So listen, man. Under the current broken system, a single immigrant can bring virtually unlimited numbers of distant relatives. Under our plan, we focus on the immediate family by limiting sponsorships to spouses and minor children. We need to end chain migration. So look, what I want to do, dudes, I asked people, what is chain migration? What did Trump mean by this? Just random people who I'm talking to. And their response was, well, what it means is that immigrants can come here and they can sponsor other people to come here, and we can't really say no, and so they just keep coming and they keep coming and they keep coming, and that's the chain, right? And so we can't stop it, and the laws can't stop it, and so it's a broken system, and then we got to do something, and we got to fix this thing. And Donald Trump and the Republicans, with some help from Democrats and so on, I'm going to fix it. Of course, that's what Obama said as well, and before Obama, that's what Bush said, and before Bush, that's what Clinton said, and so on and so forth, right? So I want to walk through how we got to chain migration. Dudes, oh man. Can everyone just really take, fuck. This is one of those moments when, the reason I do this is to just turn things on its head, so that when you leave here, you realize that I want you to leave here thinking that you don't know anything, right? That's the goal. College becoming a thinker is about emptying our brains with the idea that we know something. I did that a long time ago. So I have no sense at all that I know anything. It's very clear in my mind. I'm just trying to put two and two together, and I'm endlessly finding things that demonstrate that the world is exactly opposite of everything that I thought it was. And so when I see a guy like Trump, and before Trump it was Obama, saying equally silly things about immigration, and Obama deported more immigrants back to their home countries than Trump has, and thus far in his first year. Obama, by the time he got to his third year, deported many more people than Trump has. So don't think that we need an Obama, because if you're for not people back, Trump is better. They're showing. I just want to walk you through something, okay? Dude, go to the next slide. So here, historically in the United States, Europeans start coming into the U.S. and they come in groups. By the way, dude, this isn't history. I'm gonna go through this really fast. Setting aside Native Americans for a second, Europeans come, They largely come in groups. There's largely this quota thing where you know a certain number of people are going to come from every country, and you kind of work that out, and it's all good, right? But we're still fighting over it. People have been fighting. Every group that came here fought to keep other groups out. We've always been fighting over immigrants. The history of the United States, trying to figure out who should be allowed in this country and under what conditions. It is never going away. And by all accounts, Trump is no different than anybody else. Those of you who aren't paying attention and just listen or read your liberal news feeds on Facebook and imagine that this guy's like a real a-hole, it's like maybe you're not paying attention because this is a really complex issue. So here, 1960, 7 out of 8 immigrants were from Europe. So in 65, there was this really conservative congressman from Ohio, and he had the idea that he said, I'm just looking at one tiny piece of this, that's all, this issue of chain migration. So he had the idea, look, here's what's going on. We need, what we're seeing are more and more black and brown people coming in, and we make sure that we remain a white nation. Very clear about this. The idea that the U.S. is a white nation, white people are more advanced, we can't be bringing more people from Africa, from Asia, from South America, black and brown people. We need to ensure that we remain a white nation, and we were a very white nation in 1960, okay? So he passes this proposal to support chain migration. And what he says, what the proposal is that people who are here can sponsor people back home. They can sponsor their relatives to come to the United States. We hadn't done this before in this way. So in such a large way, our fundamental policies was based on this, as far as I can ascertain. And so now it changes. So now the baseline of our policy is like people who are here now can sponsor people back home, their relatives. So his idea is that means the white people who are here, the immigrants that are coming, are going to go back home to their family members and their friends, and they're going to say, hey, come to the United States, you can live with me, I'll find you a job, we'll do this, we'll do that, and then you can be part of the United States. That's good for this dude, Michael Fegan, because then we can remain a white nation. But what he didn't understand was that what was going on is immigration from Europe was dying down because Europe was transforming and fewer immigrants were coming from Europe, and more immigrants were starting in the mid-60s, starting to come from black and brown nations, from Africa, from Latin America, and from Asia, in particular Southeast Asia, or East Asia, okay? And South Asia, India. So, in Pakistan. Okay? So now we move to chain migration policy because of racism. It's racism. You got that? It's pure racism. Chain migration, meaning we're going to set it up so when I show up in the United States as this person from Ireland or the UK or France or Italy or whatever, I will go back to my home country and I will find my brother, my sister, my mother, whoever, and I will sponsor them to come to the United States. And that's good because we want to make sure that there are lots of white people, but what he didn't understand was demographics were changing, and what was going on was more and more black and brown people were coming in. They were going to be the ones that sponsored their family members, so that by 2010, 9 immigrants that were being sponsored to come to the United States. Now where we're at is 9 out of 10. So we're getting more and more black, more and more brown, and the same racist thinking is coming to the fore that says, and I'm going to call it racist, but I'm going to call it racist with quotes around it so the alt-right doesn't get pissed. So, but the same basic racist ideas that says we need to be. The way to do that was chain migration. Now the way to continue to be a white nation or to make sure we have enough white people here is to end chain migrations. You see that? You see, like, how amazing that is. But what's behind it all is racism that says we want more white people because my people. So look, I'm just going to put this out here because I need you to see this, right? Because it's worth not getting lost in misinformation. They can only sponsor a spouse or unmarried children. If you have a green card, like permanent residency in the United States, you're not a citizen in the U.S., but you have a green card. Who has residency but they're not a citizen? Bro, There's one. Who else? 2, 3. Some of you? Okay, right? So if you are a U.S. citizen, though, you can sponsor a spouse, unmarried children, married children, parents, brothers and sisters, fiancé or fiancée. So male or female, right? But you can't do aunts and uncles and grandparents. You could do grandparents, like you could get your, your parents, and I mean, there are lots of ways you could get about it. But the idea being, you can't just go and bring anybody here. That's not what's happening. So Trump, this is the most important thing that you need to know. So I listened. Hang on, I swear. We have 1 minute, and I want you to hear this. So I listened. I used to study immigration when I was in graduate school in my PhD program. So I think I know a lot about what I don't know. And I was listening the other day to this guy talk about how long it would take to shift to Trump's policy, and because there's such a backlog of cases. And the guy said, for Trump's, they said, there were several of them talking, they said for Trump's policy to take effect, regardless of what politicians say, because this is like Obama, right? Remember Obama was going to make everybody rich and so on. But it would take decades because of the backlog of paperwork. So it's not going to change, dudes. It's not going to change. All right, have a safe weekend.